Well, my name is Kadi, hello. And before I get to the ESG tool, which is the topic of the seminar, I think we need to address like the elephant in the room, that why are we talking about this when no one has to report anymore? So I think it's important to understand what is the purpose of reporting and to really see what the value of this tool is for you. That it started out, the reason behind it was to help companies meet their regulatory requirements of reporting, but in this new environment where that's maybe not relevant for most companies, it's really important to actually understand why we had that regulation in the first place. So as I can see, the biggest word here is transparency, which is good. So transparency to your stakeholders, but also inside of the company. Why do we want transparency? Is for people to have enough information to make informed decisions or correct decisions. So if you think about like financial reporting, why do we have that? It's to ensure that investors or clients or whoever has the needed information to make decisions. So this is also the same for sustainability reporting, and it's also both for your own company and other stakeholders. So if we look at your own company, maybe these like words about improvement, analysis, so that you yourself can understand what are the ways that you could be more efficient, what you can improve. So if you need to make decisions, you need the information before that. So that's like internal reporting, which you can also use this tool for, and then outside transparency to your stakeholders, be they investors, clients, partners. They should have all of the information necessary to make this decision. Do they want to invest in you? Do they want to buy your products? So just because when we get into this tool, you will see that there are a lot of references to CSRD and ESRS. So you can maybe ignore them, or like don't let yourself be caught up in this regulatory requirement and think beyond, like why would I actually need to figure out what are the important topics I should be first governing in my own company, and how can reporting help me really do that? So yeah, I think very good answers, big transparency. So I will get to the tool and the introduction. So, or maybe I'll stay here. So the ESG tool is an Interreg project. So Baltic countries and Finland were all involved in developing this tool. It's free to use for everyone. It's in 5 languages, so the Baltic languages, Finnish and English. And it was so a cooperation between public sector and also some companies that helped to develop this as part of that Interreg project. So these are just some of the partners. And so what we were talking about already, I really want to emphasize again that maybe don't think so much about the original intent, which was to meet the regulations, but think what was behind the regulation in the first place. So the purpose is to find out what are the topics that you have an impact on, or that can impact your financials, and how could you move forward in better managing those topics, and what are the tools that you can use. So as I mentioned, in general, what's the purpose of reporting? Then this tool also, on top of the tool part, it also has a lot of these good materials on sustainability, like in general, really good guides, examples. So this is one example of the materials that you can also get from this tool website that you can use also for communicating with your stakeholders, either internally or externally. And this is again like an example of what are the benefits of reporting. Basically, how can we make good decisions about, for example, operational efficiency, what information we need to be more efficient internally. Like access to finance is about what information like the bank or investor needs to make their decision. So this all boils down to like what is the purpose of reporting in the first place. So I will show you exactly the tool itself as well and the website. But even if you don't want to or don't have the need at the moment to do this exercise itself, I suggest you kind of surf the whole website to see all of these good materials that are in there as well. But what is the function is to do a double materiality assessment. So sometimes maybe there have been questions like, okay, it's a reporting tool. Do I get a report out of it? No, you get what you get out of it is a list of topics that you should focus on your sustainability journey. So first of all, these are the topics that you should be managing, and then if you want to also report on them, or at least report internally if you're not ready to do an external report. But what this ESG journey shows that the analysis we are doing in this tool is just the first step. And it's actually kind of a one-time exercise because although it requires quite a lot of effort to do it properly, you don't need to do the whole thing, every year, because if your business isn't changing very much, your impacts and risks are also not changing. So it's kind of like a one-time investment of your time to do the impact analysis, and then we get to the actual meat of the sustainability journey is when we find out what these topics are that we should be managing. We can set targets of what do we want to achieve relating to them, what are we measuring to see if we're reaching these targets, and the actions that then we have to do to reach these targets that we set. And then the last part is then reporting. And so I think this is also what has brought on this negative sentiment towards sustainability that a lot of companies have been starting from the last point, so reporting and going backwards. So they have an idea that, okay, we need to report now, but actually what? I have no idea. Okay, I'll just read the standard and do whatever they say. But actually, it's really important to start from the beginning so that you actually know what are the important topics that I should be dealing with. And this is also why double materiality was in the directives and standards, is that you don't need to report on things that are not relevant for your company. And so the double in this means that we are looking in two perspectives. So the impact perspective is inside out. So how do our actions impact either people or the environment? So this is more of like a classic environmental impact, impact on our employees, what's the health and safety, how much do we pay them, all of this things that we are more used to analyzing. But what CSRD brought was the other view of outside-in impacts, which is actually not revolutionary. Also, it's just a risk assessment. But maybe a lot of smaller companies are not used to doing risk assessments. So this looks at how external factors might impact my business's finances. So if the first impact part is measurable in how much water we consume, how much emissions we have, how much do we pay men and women, then this risk and opportunity is geared towards money. So how many euros does this regulation change mean for our business? Do we have a higher interest rate because the bank is only investing in these green projects? So that is very monetary impact. And when the inside out impact is measurable then the risks and opportunities are more subjective. If you have like an economic future-looking projection, you can use that, but it's more of like what your management sees are the impacts of these either regulatory changes or changes in the markets, changes what your partners want. So, for example, if you're, what are the conditions that they expect from their suppliers? It could also be your dependence on some resource. For example, if you're dependent on a physical resource that's getting, like more difficult to mine or more expensive, then that could be an impact. Also, human resources. If I'm in a sector where there's like a big competition for employees, and younger people prefer companies that are more sustainable, then that could also be like a risk for you if you need to like spend more money to find these employees. So this is the double view, and the topic can be important if it's important from the impact or the risk and opportunity perspective. So it doesn't have to be material from both. But I will show you exactly like visually as well what this means. And because this tool was done based on CSRD and the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, so the methodology relies on this ESRS base. So the material topics are the topical standards from ESRS. So we have 5 environmental topics, 4 social, and 1 governance. So what is the end result from the tool is that you get this list of which of these 10 are important for your company. So you should be managing these and then maybe reporting on them as well. So this is like the base, and inside of the tool you can see a lot of descriptions and helpful material to elaborate on what is meant by these topics and what the standard was looking for. And this is how the tool is set up then. It has 5 stages. The first stage covers value chain and stakeholders. So how it does it is that you list your stakeholders in 3 groups based on like the value chain aspect. So who are stakeholders in my own operations? So this is my own company, plus if I have any subsidiaries or if I'm part of a group. Then who are the stakeholders upstream in the value chain? So these are my suppliers usually. And then who are the stakeholders downstream? So these are my clients or other partners. And then you have to rank kind of like how big of an impact do these stakeholders have on my business. And the purpose of that is that when you're doing the assessment of these topics, you have to take into account the stakeholder perspective, but some stakeholders are more important for you than others. So you have to rank, grade them here. Is this like a critical stakeholder for me? If so, then probably their opinion is more important, and I should really take it into account when I'm grading the importance of these topics. Versus if I have some other stakeholders that could, I can keep them informed, but maybe they're not as crucial for my business. So I don't have to maybe like directly involve them in this assessment as well. And I will go into the tool and show you all of these stages later. Then the second stage, the purpose of that is to kind of pre-filter the topics. So it's a questionnaire on all of the topics from ESRS to see if there are any that are like not relevant at all for you. So if I don't have like any connection to water, there's no need to like do the assessment later then. But you will also be able, if this, so this questionnaire here is kind of very sensitive. It will rather give you all of the topics, and it leaves out ones that are really not relevant. But you can later skip topics as well if you see that actually they are not relevant at all, or you can also add them back if you see that this questionnaire, I don't know, maybe it gave a weird result and took away one topic that you actually see that might be important, so you can add that back later. So it's not like a final thing that comes out of stage 2. But then what is the most critical part is stage 3, where you actually do the numerical assessment then. So this is where, what to keep in mind about this tool is that it's not like a simple tool that you can fill in 5 minutes. So it gives you this methodology and the practical steps on how to do the assessment, but you really need to devote some time and energy into really thinking about these topics and assessing their materiality for you. So stage 3 will require some effort. Then stage 4 is where you get the results of the numerical assessment that you did, and this is the place where you should qualitatively reassess, like, do these results make sense, taking into account all of your stakeholders. For example, if my biggest client demands this thing from me, if I don't do it, they won't buy my products anymore. But I see that this topic didn't come out as material, maybe I should reassess, taking into account that this is like a crucial partner for me. So stage 4 is really, because this giving numbers is a little subjective, and if you don't have very much data to go on as well, it might give sometimes weird results, or doing it the first time, it can be a little challenging, and it really depends on also like the person. How conservative are you in grading? Like, some companies give everything a 4 out of 5, and some companies give everything a 2 out of 5. So stage 4 is also really important, that you actually assess the results and see if they actually make sense. And then stage 5 is just all of the results kind of overview. You can download everything, and it also gives these ideas how to move forward with links to like helpful materials, and also just general like guidance of, okay, I now know that these are my material topics. My company should really manage them. So it gives hints on like how to now go to your board or whoever and kind of like sell this idea that we should start managing these, or how to create an ESG strategy. So it doesn't give you like a report, but it gives you guidance on how to move forward. Because, yeah, as I showed before in this ESG journey circle, this tool only gives you the first step, and actually how you become sustainable is how you move forward in this journey. Getting into the tool itself, you have to sign up. It's based on the company. If you put the registry code, it should fill in all of the questions. But sometimes if it doesn't work, it's okay. You can fill in them manually as well. But the main points are that it's company-based. Yes. Yeah, and sorry, and ask anytime, just, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question now about when you have to report on group of companies.
Yeah. So the question was about if you have to report on a group of companies. So you can only do like one assessment at a time, but you can do like multiple assessments. So if you have a group that does very different businesses, it's a good idea not to put them all together, because their material topics might be very different. So you can have multiple assessments, like, this is my business segment A, this is my business segment B, do the assessment, and then you can just see what are the results, and this doesn't have like a way that you can automatically like consolidate them. But that's then up to you to see, like, if all of my business segments have this as material, it's probably material for the whole group. So yeah, you can have multiple assessments.
For example, we have factories in 3 locations. Should we do also different?
Depends on how different the locations are. If they're like 3 Baltic countries, I would say there's not that big of a difference maybe. But if you have like a factory in Spain and Estonia, then it might be a good idea to do it separately because, for example, like climate risks might be very different. Yeah, so if it's in Estonia, then I would say just do one because what you should think about is, are my locations like very different? If they're kind of the same, there's no need to do them separately. So basically you can have 5 users. It saves all the time, so you don't have to like save separately. Nothing gets lost. And yeah, I think basically if there's some problems, you can just like email them and they'll help you, I don't know, add or delete or whatever you need. Okay, so now I will go into the tool itself. So what I suggest you do is kind of is this big enough or should I zoom in? Zoom in, okay. Is this okay? Yeah, so these here are very good materials as well. You know, if you're not doing regulatory reporting, you can skip some, but what's really good is this supportive materials. So it has very good guidance on whatever you're looking for, methodologies, examples, which is very good. I would say that the most beneficial thing to do if you're starting this journey is to look at examples of other companies. And they have here like actual examples from reports of other companies. So you can see like if you're asked to map your stakeholders, like what usually are who usually are the biggest stakeholders, how they can be approached, what topics maybe are important to them. So they have examples for all of the stages. And also very good is this methodologies and guidance. So all of the topics have links to materials that are useful for you. And also they link to this country-specific sites as well. So in Estonia, it's the Finance Ministry's site for reporting that has, you know, updates on the materials there as well. So I really suggest that even if you don't want to do the materiality assessment, go look at these other materials on this site. But then the tool itself is here. It has also a lot of like helpful materials, explanations, videos of what is expected in each stage. So the first stage is this stakeholder mapping, also looking at the value chain. So they have these linked, like the guidance, the examples. So I suggest you open all of these links here. They have an example with one IT company to give you an idea of what this could look like. But as I mentioned, what this means is that you will list your stakeholders and rate them from no impact to very high impact. And if you put these higher impacts, it will open these additional questions of like from what perspective they are, you know, this impact is coming from. Is it like a policymaker or is it my own employees like perspective? And so the point of this exercise is to see who are the stakeholders that I should be involving in my assessment, whose opinion I should really be focusing on. because once you get to the assessment part, this tool doesn't like technically allow you to like send out questionnaires. So when you are putting the scores in, before that you have already had to like do this analysis of what your stakeholders see as important topics. So once you get to the scoring, you have to have this pre-analysis of what others think. So because the scoring definitely shouldn't be done by like one person, like the manager or board member. It should really include both internal and external stakeholders. So this tool really doesn't give you like a nice way to involve the stakeholders. You have to do that before you get to the tool. And from the value chain perspective, then these stakeholders are put into 3 categories: own organization, upstream, sorry, some of these are in Estonian, so basically suppliers, and then downstream, mostly like clients, if you have any sort of other distribution partners or something like that. And every stage has this comment box, which I also recommend you fill in, because this is for your own good if you redo this next year, or if another employee is going to do this next year, so that they have enough information to see like why did we give these scores or why did we put these stakeholders. So these are for like your own use. And so what this result is from this mapping is that you get this kind of value chain view of where your stakeholders are. So these are, some are in Estonian, some are in English, just a few examples of like what they could be. This is again for this IT company, so suppliers have to do with data or the hardware, clients like end of life of the hardware. So it gives you this perspective that materiality assessment really needs to be done not only from your own controlled activities, but also taking into account what happens before you and what happens after you. Because, for example, so we were piloting this with IT companies, so that's why the examples are in that sector. For example, if I'm an IT company, I just, work at home behind a computer, it doesn't really seem like I have any impact on anything. But then you should really think about like, okay, what is needed for this data management that I'm creating? So maybe energy is an important topic, but it comes from the value chain, not my own operations. So this is the view that the CSRD brought in, that we are assessing materiality across the value chain, not just your own activities. And this tool always gives you like a visualization and the results in a table, and this also expands on who are these stakeholders and what are the topics maybe you should be thinking about when you think about these. So like workers in the value chain, what is meant by that? So if you have partners, what are the conditions of their workers as well? So in some sectors that might be a very important topic if you have a lot of subcontractors. So it gives you some more information about these stakeholders based on your results. And then you can't see this, but this basically gives you like steps on how to engage these stakeholders now. So we have done the first bubble, which is mapping them. And the next then would be, okay, how do I actually engage them? How do I get to know what are important topics for them? So this is kind of an overview, but then there are these supporting materials with guidance on, like more specific guidance on how you can do it, like how to engage internal stakeholders, how to engage external stakeholders. It doesn't have to be always a direct interview or questionnaire. There are like indirect ways you could also find out what are important topics for them. And then you can always also download the results in Excel and PDF. So then we get to the next stage, Again, I suggest you open all of these links so that you can have like more guidance on what is expected here. But this is basically the questionnaire. So the logic is that it goes by these ESRS topical standards. So there are 10 big topics, and they have these questions. They're quite simple in the way that the answers are yes, no, don't know, basically. So although there are quite a few questions, it shouldn't take a very big effort to answer them, because you will know, like, yes, we have done this, no, or we haven't analyzed this topic. And some topics have more questions than others. These environmental, I think, have quite a few, and then S has fewer. But the point is that if you put, like, you know, for pollution everywhere, no, we don't have anything to do with pollution. Also, it asks about partners in your value chain. No, they're also not connected in any way. Then this topic might not show up in the next stage because it's irrelevant, so you don't need to, you know, actually score it. But as I mentioned, you can always add them back or mark later that they're not relevant for you. So there's quite a few questions, but they're very like intuitively answerable. So this doesn't require like a big amount of analysis. Like, you will probably know how to answer quite quickly. And what you get then is maybe looks a little bit overwhelming, but as I said, this questionnaire tends to keep in topics. If there's like any doubt, is this relevant or not? So when we move to the assessment part, the assessment is done by the subtopic level. So this comes from the ESRS logic that if we are talking about climate change, there are 3 subtopics. So climate change mitigation, which has to do with the emissions. Climate change adaptation, which has to do with the fact that the climate is changing anyway, even if we don't emit anything on top, and how do we survive in these new climate conditions. And then energy is mostly like energy efficiency. So all of the big topics have subtopics, and it makes more sense to do the assessment in those, because, like, for example, pollution, exactly what are we polluting? So that's the logic behind that. This subtopic also comes from ESRS, but it's not in this tool afterwards. But it might give you just an idea of like what are the impacts or risks that could be under here. So this just gives you this list. You can also download all of these, and then we move to actually scoring them. So this stage 3 is where really the most, like effort goes in. The logic is that we are doing impact assessment separately from risks and opportunities, because what we are assessing is slightly different. So for impacts, we are assessing materiality from the perspective of the impacted stakeholder. So if you're thinking about whatever pollution, what you have to do is put yourself like in the role of the environment that you are polluting. So from their perspective, how important is this impact? Or if you're talking about like employees, you're not thinking about as from the perspective of the company, but from the perspective of the impacted person. Like, how big is the or how serious is the impact to them, and how easy is it to remediate it for them. So yeah, you really need to put yourself in the shoes of the impacted person or nature. But if we're talking about risks and opportunities, then you are looking at the company and specifically finances. Like, this topic, what is the impact on my finances? So this is why they are assessed separately, because the perspective is different. So as I said before, if you don't think that this topic is actually relevant. So this is how it originally looks like. I will show you an example of how to fill this in, but you see that, okay, pollution of water is actually not really related to me or my value chain. So then you have to push this button here, and it will allow you to not assess it. So you can't leave these blank, because then you can't move on. So if you don't want to assess it, or you don't have information at the moment, but you just want to move on, you need to like push this button. But let's not take environment, because that's getting too much attention. Let's take working conditions. So also they have these information bubbles, which I suggest you hover over. A very good like guidance again on what is expected in this question. This top part, before we get to numbers, is all about describing this impact. And the specific questions come from ESRS. But if you are not doing an ESRS report, these are the things that you can maybe like kind of gloss over in the beginning if you know you want to do it easier. And then if you have assessed that this impact is very material to you, you can come back and then analyze like where exactly in the value chain this is, in what time horizon this impact is appearing, so that, so because this might be a little like overwhelming to smaller companies. So this is how you can make it a little bit easier, that you don't have to like put too much effort into all of these characterizations. Maybe you can come back later if you see that these are the important topics, and then you can analyze further, because this information is important for how you manage these topics going forward. So that's why you should do it at some point, but you can skip or kind of like, you know, not waste too much time on these if you would like to, you know, do it a little bit easier. But basically, what these are is the impact event is kind of specifying, if we're talking about working conditions, like what topic exactly. So this is a pre-populated list, but you can also put other, and just if you don't think that your specific impact goes under any of these. What is important regarding positive or negative is that you don't net positive and negative impacts, that you assess them separately, which is kind of a common thing that companies do. So for example, working conditions, you might have both positive impacts on your workers and negative impacts on your workers. And these are meant to be assessed separately, so you don't net like overall impact on workers. So for example, here we have a positive impact that we are providing some mental health services. But I also have a negative impact under the same topic, that employees might have like physical ailments from sitting behind a computer all day. So just what is important is that you assess positive and negative impacts separately. So this value chain location is just, you know, like where this impact is coming from. If you don't want to analyze it in the beginning, you can do it later. Also, this time horizon is something you can do later if you don't want to do it in the beginning. It's about like, in what time horizon does this impact, you know, take place? Because some environmental impacts, for example, might be like cumulative, so that I'm doing like a little bit of pollution every year, but the effects on people maybe, you know, realize only in 5 years' time when the pollution has accumulated. So that's the point of this. It's important if you are going to manage this topic, but you can kind of like not put too much effort in it in the beginning. So this is something you can maybe do for only the important topics. What is like actually impacting this scoring is is whether it's an actual or potential impact. So actual impact is something that has already happened. So for example, this provision of mental health services, I'm already doing it, so it's an actual impact. And what it means is that if you're grading likelihood, then it gets a 5. It doesn't put a 5 here automatically, unfortunately, so you still have to put a grade yourself. But then you know that if we're talking about actual impacts, then they should get a likelihood of 5, because the scale is 1 to 5, so the maximum. But if we have a potential impact that hasn't happened yet, then you have to score the likelihood as well. So the second example is that we might have these negative health impacts, but in this particular company, no one has said that they are experiencing them yet, so it's potential. And so we grade it as a 4 because it's quite likely that there might be, I don't know, eye stress or, stress from sitting. So the actual potential means what you do with the likelihood score. And what is quite important technically is that you have to put in, is it the negative human rights impact, because this affects the math. Because ESRS, one of the principles is that negative human rights impacts are especially important. So what this means is if you have a negative human rights impact that has a low likelihood but can have very bad consequences, then the consequence of the impact is more important than the likelihood. So if generally this last score, the final score that we're after, is the average of the severity of the impact and the likelihood, then in the case of human rights violations, it's not the average anymore. It's the maximum. So if this would be 1 and 3, it would be 3 then, because even though they're less likely, it's just such an important topic that it gets this special treatment. So basically, this is important to answer because it affects the math going forward. But then we get to the actual assessment part. So as I mentioned, this blue impact materiality score is the final result that you will then base your material topics on. This is made up of 2 things, severity and likelihood. And severity itself is made up of 3 things, but this is a positive impact, so it only has scale and scope. But for negative impacts, it's 3 things, scale, scope, and irremediability. This is also what I suggest to simplify, is that if you're not doing a regulatory report, you can take into account scale, scope, and irremediability, which I will explain in details, but I would suggest you don't actually score them separately because it's quite difficult. So you can just put the same number here because the severity score is the average of these 3. So if you put the same everywhere, that will be the score then. But just take into account these 3 aspects. So scale is basically what is the consequence of this impact. So if we're talking about nature, what happens in nature from my pollution? Does the whole population die? Is it just a very, I don't know, something that it has a smaller impact? For people, if we're talking about health consequences, is it a minor health consequence, or up to death basically from workplace health and safety concerns? So this is where you have to put yourself in the shoes of the impacted person or environment and think about what happens to them. So the most difficult are these global impacts like climate change. So basically the scale should be the same for all companies, because the impact on nature from greenhouse gas emissions is the same no matter who is emitting them. But where your part comes in is the scope. So the scope is where you take into account like how much am I emitting GHG emissions, and or if it's about pollution, like how big of an area am I polluting? Is it local? Is it like the whole population that I'm impacting? If we're talking about people, it's basically the number of people. Are all of my workers sitting in this in front of the screen and having these possible health impacts, or you know, if it's a very like high risk job, like what percentage of my employees are doing this high risk job? So if it's like one person in my company, you would grade it with a lower grade. If it's all of my workers, it would get a higher grade. And this again, this climate change is the most difficult topic in this regard, because you really have to like think about what context you are putting this grade in. Like, am I comparing myself to global emissions, Estonia's emissions, emissions in my sector? So that's that is the most difficult part of this whole thing, is kind of like this, you have to do a bit of philosophy of what context you are grading yourself in. It's more easy for these more like direct impacts, like on my workers. You know, I just think about how many people am I affecting, but for global issues, you really need to put yourself in the context. Like if I'm a IT company in Estonia, I would probably grade myself lower, because in the perspective of like this sector, my emissions might not be that big. But if I'm like a big energy company, and my GHG emissions are like half of Estonia's emissions, I would need to grade it higher. So I would say this scope is maybe the most difficult. So that's why I would suggest that you just take this into account in the overall analysis, but you might not want to put this separate score, because it is quite like challenging. And then irremediability is only for negative impacts, because this has to do with how easy is it to fix this impact. So we don't need this for positives. But yeah, so is it a matter of I can put just a filter and there's no pollution anymore? Or is it climate change where it's extremely difficult to make it you know, better? So these are the three aspects that you have to take into account. But yeah, I suggest just put the same score for each one, at least on the first go. And then maybe if you are you know, more accustomed to thinking about these things, you can get into more details and put a separate score for each. Yeah, so that's how you get the severity score and likelihood. Just this suggests some. So it's all of these are 1 to 5, and you can't change them, but you can like use whatever explanations you have already existing in your company. Like for example, if you have risk assessment in place, use whatever like categories you have to define what does 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 mean. Because here it's like 0 to 20%, but you might have like a 0 to 15%. So these are just the suggestions, but if you have any existing like systems, just use them to interpret these results. So that's for impacts, which I think this scope might be the most challenging for these global issues. But if we look at risks and opportunities, it's a little bit easier. For example, this is in, yeah, so for example, if we have an opportunity as well. So this is also something that I want to mention, is that companies often kind of think that sustainability reporting will only mean that they talk about all the negative things that they do. But no, you also have a lot of positive impacts, and you might also have a lot of opportunities that's coming from these sustainability related changes. So for example, if this company is producing like building automation software, then they might actually have an opportunity from climate change that demand for their product increases. So the goal is to, you know, like guide your business decisions, so don't overlook opportunities from these topics. Here again, the first like top part is about describing the risk or opportunity. So the first one, the event means like what is the external thing that happened that's leading to a risk or opportunity. There's a list, but you can also put other if it doesn't fit into the pre-populated list. Then it's the type. This is like an ESRS requirement, might not be important for you. Basically, we have two types of climate risks, transition risks, which are all of these changes in the market, regulations, etc. And then we have physical climate risks. And then, yeah, is it a risk or opportunity? So is it a negative financial impact or positive? And again, this value chain location, which you can skip in the beginning and come back to it if this is a material risk for you, because it's important if you are starting to manage these topics, but it doesn't impact the like score calculation. So it's one of the ways that you can make it easier. But the time horizon is important for the assessment, because you have to be on the same page of what horizon are we thinking about if we want to assess the likelihood and also the amount of the financial effect. So if we're talking about physical climate risks, the likelihood will be very different if we're looking at 1 year or 10 years. Also, the monetary amount will be very different. So this in risks and opportunities, the time horizon is like very important, that when you're doing this assessment with more than one person, that all of the assessors are, you know, on the same page of what period we're talking about when we're putting these numbers. But the scoring itself is easier than impacts in the way that it's classic risk assessment. What's the financial effect and what's the likelihood? So financial effect, you need to think about basically the monetary amount in any way that it materializes. Is it like demand change, interest rate change, like capital cost, whatever way it has if you're like on the stock market, what's your stock price? So anyway, it affects your finances. And then likelihood here, when you're assessing it, take into account what are you already doing to prevent this risk from materializing. So for example, there are some risks that might have a giant financial impact, but they're very unlikely because you are already doing things to prevent them from happening. So for example, this cybersecurity, it can have a very big financial effect, but you might already have like very secure systems and, you know, do very much to prevent this financial impact from happening. Which leads me to another point that is a kind of common misunderstanding, is that sometimes companies grade the topics that they are like all good in as very low importance. So for example, like worker health and safety sometimes gets very low materiality scores because the company says that everything's good, we don't have any problems here. So when you're doing the assessment, go back to like the 0 point of if I am not doing anything, is this a topic that I should be managing? And the hint is that if you are already very focused on managing this topic, then it means that it should be a material topic for you. Because so you are providing this health and safety for some reason, and the reason is that it's an important topic for your business, or it's an important topic for your stakeholders, the state who, you know, wants you to do this. So take that into account, that kind of without thinking about like how good or bad is the current state that I'm in this management of this topic, but think about, is it a topic that I should be managing? So, and if you are already managing something very much, or if it's already like a big part of your strategy, that means it should be more important. So yeah, then the final score for this is just average of likelihood and financial effect. And so then we get to this fourth, so yeah, you can download the whole thing. And then we get to the fourth stage, which is all of these things that I've been mentioning, is that you need to assess, do these results make sense? The first step is to look at the results that are like on the borderline of where you're drawing your materiality threshold. So there's an automatic threshold here, 3.5. So we're on a 1 to 5 scale. But you can change this if you see that all of you're like a very you put 4 for everything, then 3.5 might not make sense, so you can change it higher. If you put the 2 for everything, you see that it's very like lopsided, then maybe the 3.5 is not correct threshold. So you can change that. But also you should look at, so these yellows are like in 0.5 of the threshold. So you can see that I have this thing that's 3.3. Currently it would be not material, so I need to think, does it make sense that this is actually not material? And this is like worker health and safety. Maybe I think that actually taking into account my stakeholders, this should be material. If it's just this one impact, you can go back and just change the grading for this one impact. But if your whole result is kind of lopsided, then it would be better to change the threshold. And here, this is for impacts separately, and then risks and opportunities separately. So this is like the analysis of the close calls. So if there's something close to the threshold, think about, should it be over or under? And what's the actual outcome? That's the classic double materiality matrix. So here you have this list of the topics. And they are visualized with financial materiality on one axis and impact materiality on the other. So everything that's on the right is material from risk and opportunity perspective. Everything that's on top is material from the impact perspective. What's in this corner is material for both, but it doesn't have to be material from both. It could be just one or the other. So anything that's on the right or on top is a material topic. So what you need to do here is this gives you also like some questions to think about. Is if I see that, I don't know, this 11 waste comes out as not material, does it make sense? If I think about my partners, my stakeholders, my clients, my financiers, is it okay that I'm not dealing with waste? Or if I see that it's like the most important topic for my biggest, most important client, then maybe I should reassess the importance of this topic for me. So this is like the crucial thing you need to do in stage 4 is actually think about your results and analyze if they make sense from all different perspectives. So basically, that's like the end result that we're looking for is this materiality matrix. This next stage just kind of puts it all together and gives you then suggestions of how to move forward. So like, for example, guidelines of how to integrate this into your strategy now. And yeah, so basically what you get from this tool now is this list of topics that are material for your company. And as I showed you before in this ESG journey, that's only the first step. So now you have to go and actually start managing these. Practically what this tool also gives you is quite nice visuals. So for internal communication as well, if you go to your management now, If you would go to them saying that we need to do sustainability, they will not be very kind to you. So this is a good way of showing that you have actually analyzed that, especially from the risks and opportunities perspective, that these are financial impacts that could happen to us. And you can show these nice visualizations of this, and then you can move forward with, how do we need to manage, what could we add to our strategy or strategic business decisions. So this is like a good practical thing you get out of it as well. And then you get all of this like guidance on how to move forward. Yeah, but then the next step is to actually starting to manage these and reporting so that you can see how you are doing with managing them and see, if you need to change your approach. Okay, so any questions?
For example, is the wastewaters, canalization, showers and toilets, should we add it to our report?
Yeah, so you need, I would say like if you are in between of thinking this might be important or might not, then do the assessment.
But our company who takes our wastewaters cleans it so well that they might be in the local region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you need to think about like for water, like how big is the amount? Like if you're very big.
It's so small.
Yeah, so then, so if it's a very small impact, because we have impacts on all topics basically, but yeah, when you're assessing materiality, you need to think about kind of the amounts. Like if we're talking about environmental impacts, it's quite nicely measurable as well. So if it's a small amount, then it's probably not material. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You just need to kind of fit them under one of the topic, under, is it kind of a governance or a social topic, but you can add whatever, yeah. Okay, then we're out of time. Thank you for being here. Mm-hmm.